Hey everyone, I'm Mono Scaling. I'm here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now get comfortable and relax. My name is Abigail Reed. I need to write this down while I still remember it clearly, while I can still trust my own memory of what happened. I'm sitting in my RV right now, parked at a rest stop 300 miles from Ocala National Forest, and my hands won't stop shaking. I left Boston in early November, driving my 2015 Winnebago south for the winter. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and I'd spent the last 2 years working from my apartment, barely leaving except for groceries. After my divorce finalized in August, I decided I needed a change. The RV belonged to my ex-husband's parents, and they let me buy it cheap when they heard I was planning a solo trip. They probably felt sorry for me. I'd been on the road for 3 weeks, stopping at various campgrounds along the way. Ocala National Forest in Florida seemed like a good place to spend a few days. The website showed pictures of Spanish moss hanging from oak trees, clear springs, and quiet camping sites. It looked peaceful. I'd planned to do some hiking, maybe take my camera out and work on a few client projects with decent cell reception. I arrived at the Juniper Springs campground on a Thursday afternoon. November in Florida isn't like November in Boston. It was warm, probably in the mid-70s, and the air felt thick even though it wasn't summer. The campground host, a man in his 60s named Carl, checked me in at the small office near the entrance. "How long you staying?" he asked, not looking up from his clipboard. "3 nights, maybe 4, I said. He nodded and handed me a map of the campground. "You're in Site 17. Down that road, take your second left. Can't miss it." "Is it pretty full right now?" "Nah, off-season. You'll have plenty of space." He finally looked at me. "You here alone?" "Yes." Something crossed his face, but I couldn't read it. "Well, stay on the marked trails if you go hiking. Easy to get turned around in there." I thanked him and drove to my site. He was right about it being empty. I passed maybe 4 other RVs on the way to Site 17, and they all looked dark and unoccupied. My spot was at the end of a small loop, backed up against dense forest. There was a picnic table, a fire ring, and an electrical hookup. I spent the next hour getting set up, leveling the RV, connecting the power, and arranging my small outdoor area. By the time I finished, it was almost 5 o'clock. The sun was getting lower, and the forest behind my site had that golden afternoon light filtering through the trees. I grabbed my camera and decided to take a short walk before dinner. The trail started about 50 yards from my site, marked with a small wooden sign that read "Nature Trail 2 miles." I locked the RV and headed in. The forest was different from what I was used to in New England. The trees here were pines and palmettos, and the ground was sandy instead of rocky. I could hear birds I didn't recognize, and the air smelled like pine needles and something else, something almost sweet but also slightly rotten. Probably just decomposing vegetation in the swampy areas. I walked for about 20 minutes, taking photos of interesting plants and a few shots of the fading light through the canopy. The trail was well marked with white blazes on the trees, and I had no trouble following it. I checked my phone occasionally. I had 2 bars of service, which was better than some places I'd stayed. That's when I saw the clearing. It was just off the trail, maybe 30 feet into the woods. I almost missed it, but something about the way the trees opened up caught my eye. I stepped off the path, pushing through some palmetto fronds, and found myself in a small open area, roughly circular, maybe 20 feet across. In the center was a grave. Not an old historical grave, but a fresh one. The earth was mounded up, and at the head of the mound was a simple wooden cross. No, not a cross, a marker. A flat piece of wood, painted white, stuck into the ground. I walked closer. The name on the marker was painted in black letters, Abigail Reed. My name. I stood there for probably a full minute just staring at it. My first thought was that it had to be a coincidence. Abigail isn't an uncommon name, and Reed is a pretty common last name. But both together, in a clearing in the middle of Ocala National Forest? I pulled out my phone and took a picture of it. Then I walked around the grave looking for any other markers or signs. There were none. The clearing was empty except for the grave and the surrounding trees. The earth looked recently turned, maybe within the last few weeks. I tried to think rationally. Maybe this was someone's idea of a prank. Maybe there was another Abigail Reed who had died, and someone had buried her here. But that didn't make sense. This was public land, and you couldn't just bury people in national forests. And if it was a pet cemetery or something, there would be other graves. I checked my phone again. Still 2 bars. I almost called someone, maybe my sister in Vermont, but what would I even say? "Hey, I found a grave with my name on it." She'd think I was being dramatic. I took one more photo, then pushed my way back through the palmettos to the trail. The sun was lower now and the forest had taken on a darker tone. I walked quickly back toward the campground, checking over my shoulder more often than I needed to. When I got back to my RV, it was almost 6:30. I made myself a simple dinner, pasta with jarred sauce, and tried to think about the grave logically. I Googled Abigail Reed Obituary, Florida on my laptop, but nothing recent came up. I found a few older ones from other states, but none that would explain a grave in Ocala National Forest. I decided to ask Carl about it in the morning. He'd been working here long enough, maybe he knew something about it. That night I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about the marker with my name on it, about the fresh earth. Around 2 in the morning, I thought I heard footsteps outside the RV, crunching on the gravel of my campsite. I sat up in bed listening. The footsteps stopped. I waited for maybe 5 minutes, barely breathing, but heard nothing else. Eventually, I convinced myself it was an animal and tried to go back to sleep. The next morning, I drove back to the campground office around 9. Carl was there, reading a newspaper and drinking coffee from a thermos. "Morning," he said when I walked in. "Everything okay with your site?" "Yeah, it's fine. I just had a question. I went for a hike yesterday on the nature trail near my site and I found something kind of strange." He looked up from his newspaper. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "There's a grave, just off the trail in a clearing. It has a name on it. My name, actually. Abigail Reed." Carl's expression didn't change. He took a sip of his coffee. "That right? Do you know anything about it? Is it some kind of memorial or something?" "Can't say I do," he said. "Lots of old graves in these woods. Families used to bury their dead on their property before there was a national forest here. But this one looks recent. The earth is still fresh." He shrugged. "Could be someone replaced an old marker. People do that sometimes, fixing up family plots. But it has my name on it. My exact name." Carl looked at me for a moment. "That's quite a coincidence." "Yeah." "Well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Probably just a coincidence like you said." He went back to his newspaper, and I got the sense that the conversation was over. I walked back to my RV feeling unsettled. Carl hadn't seemed surprised or concerned, which should have been reassuring, but somehow it made me feel worse. I spent the rest of the morning working on a logo design for a client in Chicago. The work was good for keeping my mind occupied. Around noon, I decided to drive into the nearby town to get some supplies and maybe some lunch. Getting out of the campground for a few hours seemed like a good idea. The town was called Silver Springs, about 15 minutes from the campground. It was small. One main street with a few shops, a grocery store, a diner, and a gas station. I stopped at the diner first and ordered a burger and fries. The waitress was a woman in her 40s, friendly enough. When she brought my food, she asked, "You visiting the forest?" "Yeah, I'm camping at Juniper Springs for a few days." "By yourself?" "Yes," she nodded. "Be careful out there. Easy to get lost if you wander off the trails." "That's what I've heard." I hesitated, then added, "I found something kind of strange yesterday. A grave with my name on it." Her smile faltered. "Your name?" "Abigail Reed. It was just off one of the trails." She was quiet for a moment. "That's odd." "Yeah, I asked the campground host about it, but he said it was probably just an old family plot." "Could be." She glanced toward the kitchen. "I should check on my other tables. Enjoy your lunch." She left quickly, and I noticed she didn't come back to refill my water or check if I needed anything else. Another waitress handled my bill when I was ready to leave. I stopped at the grocery store next, picking up some fresh vegetables, bread, and coffee. At the register, the cashier, a younger guy, maybe mid-20s, made small talk while scanning my items. "You from around here?" he asked. "No, just visiting. I'm staying at the campground." "Cool. Which one?" "Juniper Springs." He paused for just a second, then continued scanning. "That's a nice one. Pretty quiet this time of year." "Yeah, it's almost empty." "Yeah." He bagged my groceries. "That'll be $47.60. I paid and was about to leave when I turned back. "Can I ask you something? Do you know anything about graves in the forest? Like historical family graves?" He looked at me strangely. "Not really. Why?" "I found one yesterday with my name on it. Just seemed weird." His expression changed. Not exactly scared, but something close to it. "Your name?" "Yeah, Abigail Reed." He handed me my receipt. That's pretty weird. I'd maybe stay away from that area." "Why?" "I don't know. It's just weird." He was already looking past me to the next customer in line. "Have a good day." I drove back to the campground feeling more unsettled than before. Both the waitress and the cashier had reacted strangely when I mentioned the grave. Not like it was impossible or crazy, but like they knew something they weren't saying. When I got back to my site, I unloaded my groceries and sat at the picnic table with a beer, trying to decide what to do. I could leave, pack up and drive somewhere else, but that felt like overreacting. It was just a grave with a name that happened to match mine. Strange, yes, but not dangerous. I decided to stay. That evening I made dinner and ate outside as the sun went down. The forest was alive with sounds, insects, birds, and something that might have been an owl. I tried to focus on the peacefulness of it, on the reason I'd come out here in the first place, to get away, to clear my head, to feel less trapped than I had in my apartment. Around 8 o'clock I went inside to watch something on my laptop. I'd downloaded a few movies before leaving Boston. I was halfway through a mediocre thriller when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from a number I didn't recognize with a 352 area code, Florida. The message read, "Stay away from the clearing." I stared at the text. My first instinct was to reply, asking who it was, but something stopped me. I waited, watching to see if another message would come through. Nothing. I tried calling the number. It rang 4 times, then went to a generic voicemail message. I didn't leave one. I sat there holding my phone, trying to think of who would have my number. Carl from the campground office? Maybe. But why would he text me instead of just telling me in person? The waitress or cashier from town? But how would they have gotten my number? I checked to see if I'd given my phone number when I registered at the campground. I had. Carl had asked for it in case of emergencies, so maybe it was him. Maybe he was trying to warn me about something without being direct about it. But warn me about what? A grave with my name on it was creepy, but it wasn't inherently dangerous. I tried to go back to my movie, but I couldn't focus. Around 10, I gave up and got ready for bed. I made sure all the doors were locked, which I always did anyway, but this time I checked them twice. I lay in bed with the lights off, listening to the sounds outside. The forest at night was different, louder in some ways, with insects and frogs creating a constant drone, but also filled with sudden silences that felt unnatural. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the same number. "It's not safe there." This time I did reply. "Who is this?" I watched the screen, waiting for the 3 dots that would indicate the person was typing. They never appeared. The message just sat there, unanswered. I tried calling again. Same result. Voicemail. I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Every small sound outside made me tense. At some point, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is waking up suddenly to the sound of something hitting the side of the RV. It wasn't a loud bang, more like a deliberate knock. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up, my heart racing. The RV was dark except for a tiny LED light near the door. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table and turned it on. It was 3:06 a.m. I waited, listening. The knocking came again. Same rhythm, same intensity. Knock, knock, knock. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. I got out of bed and moved toward the door, phone in hand with the flashlight app ready. The knocking came again. But this time it was from a different side of the RV, the back near the bedroom. "I'm calling the police," I shouted. The knocking stopped. I stood there in the dark for what felt like an hour but was probably only 10 minutes. No more sounds. Eventually I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there until the sky started to lighten around 6:30, then got up and made coffee. I needed to leave. This was no longer just strange, it was actively frightening. I'd pack up and drive north, maybe find another campground in Georgia or South Carolina. I started breaking down my outdoor setup, collapsing the chairs and unhooking the electrical connection. That's when I noticed something on the picnic table, a piece of paper folded in half. I picked it up. It was damp from the morning dew, but the writing was still legible. The note was written in black ink, neat handwriting. "You shouldn't have come here, Abigail." That was it. No signature, no other explanation. I looked around the campsite. The forest was quiet except for birds waking up. No one was visible on the camping loop. I folded the note and put it in my pocket, then finished packing as quickly as I could. 20 minutes later, I was ready to go. I started the RV's engine and pulled out of the site, driving slowly down the loop toward the exit. I passed the campground office, but Carl's truck wasn't there yet. He usually didn't arrive until 8 or 9. I reached the exit and stopped at the small guard booth. There was no one inside. You only needed to check in when arriving, not when leaving. I was about to drive through when I noticed something on the booth's window, a piece of paper taped to the glass. I stopped the RV and got out to look at it. It was a missing person flyer. The photo showed a woman who looked eerily similar to me. Same dark hair, same build, same age range. The text below read, "Missing, Abigail Reed, 34, last seen in Ocala National Forest on November 3rd. If you have any information, please contact the Marion County Sheriff's Office." November 3rd. That was yesterday. I stood there feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. This wasn't possible. I was Abigail Reed. I was here. I wasn't missing. But the photo, I looked closer at it. It wasn't me, but it could have been my sister. Or a cousin. Someone related to me. No, wait. I didn't have any sisters. Did I? I closed my eyes, trying to think clearly. My sister's name was... What was her name? I'd thought about calling her when I found the grave. I could see her face in my mind, but her name was just out of reach. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There was no one listed as sister or under any name I associated with a sibling. I checked my photos. Lots of pictures of Boston, of my apartment, of the RV trip. But no pictures of family, no pictures of friends, just landscapes and architecture. That was wrong. I knew I had a sister. I'd talked to her before I left Boston, hadn't I? I got back in the RV, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I needed to see a doctor, or maybe I needed to call the police about the missing person flyer. But if I called the police and told them I was Abigail Reed, would they believe me? Or would they think I was crazy? I drove through the gate and onto the main road. I'd go into Silver Springs, find the sheriff's office, and figure this out. Maybe the woman in the photo was someone else with the same name. Maybe this was all just a series of strange coincidences that would make sense once someone explained it to me. The drive into town felt longer than it had yesterday. The road seemed to wind more, and I didn't remember passing so many identical-looking pine forests. My GPS kept recalculating, showing me taking turns I knew I hadn't taken. When I finally reached Silver Springs, something was different. The diner where I'd eaten lunch yesterday was boarded up, with weathered plywood over the windows. The grocery store was there, but the sign was faded and several letters were missing. I parked in front of what should have been the sheriff's office according to my GPS, but the building was dark and looked abandoned. I got out and walked to the door. A handwritten sign taped to the glass read, "Sheriff's Office relocated to Ocala. For emergencies, call 911. I tried the door anyway, locked. I walked back to the diner and peered through a gap in one of the boards. The interior was dusty and empty, with tables and chairs stacked against the walls. It didn't look like it had been closed for a few hours or even a few days. It looked like it had been closed for years. But I'd eaten here yesterday. I could still taste the burger, the waitress with the strange reaction to my story about the grave. She'd been real. I'd paid with my credit card. I pulled out my phone and checked my bank app. My most recent transaction was from 2 days ago, at a gas station in Georgia. There was no charge from the Silver Springs diner. I checked my photos. I'd taken pictures of my food yesterday. I always did that, a habit I'd picked up from spending too much time on social media. But when I scrolled through my camera roll, there were no photos from yesterday. The last photos I'd taken were from the trail, when I'd found the grave. No, that wasn't right. I'd taken photos in town too. I'd taken a picture of the main street, hadn't I? I checked again. No photos, just the ones from the trail, ending with the 2 shots of the grave with my name on it. I looked at those photos now, zooming in on the marker. Abigail Reed, painted in careful black letters. Below that, in smaller text I hadn't noticed before. Born April 12, 1990. I'd November 3, 2024. November 3rd. Yesterday. But I was born on April 12, 1990. That was my birthday. And today was November 4th, so November 3rd had been yesterday, and I was very much alive. Unless I wasn't. I sat down on the curb outside the abandoned diner trying to breathe normally. This was impossible. I was having some kind of breakdown, maybe a dissociative episode. The stress of the divorce, the isolation of traveling alone, it was catching up to me. I needed to call someone. I pulled up my contacts again, looking for anyone I could call. My emergency contacts were listed as my ex-husband, James, and someone named Patricia. I didn't remember who Patricia was, but I called her anyway. The phone rang 3 times. Then a woman's voice answered. "Hello? Hi, is this Patricia?" "Yes, who's this?" "It's Abigail Reed. You're listed as one of my emergency contacts." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number." "No, you're in my phone as an emergency contact. Do we know each other?" "I don't know anyone named Abigail Reed." Her voice was cautious now, like she was talking to someone unstable. "I think you have the wrong number." "Wait." She hung up. I tried calling James next. The phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. His message was the same as it had always been. "Hey, you've reached James. Leave a message." "James, it's me, Abigail. I need you to call me back. Something's wrong and I don't know what to do. Please call me." I sat there on the curb for another 10 minutes waiting for him to call back. My phone stayed silent. I looked up and down the main street of Silver Springs. It was completely empty. No cars, no people, no signs of life. The grocery store looked closed too, though I couldn't tell if it was permanently abandoned or just closed for the day. I got back in my RV and drove through town, looking for anyone. I found a gas station at the edge of town and pulled in. The pumps looked operational, but the convenience store attached to it was dark. I got out and tried the door. Locked. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. A woman was walking toward me from the direction of the road. She was wearing jeans and a dark jacket, and she looked familiar. As she got closer, my stomach dropped. She looked exactly like me. Same face, same hair, same build. If I'd seen her across a crowded room, I might have thought I was looking at a mirror. "Abigail," she said, stopping a few feet away. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm you," she said. "Or I was you. It's complicated. This isn't real. I'm having a breakdown." "You're not having a breakdown." She took a step closer. "You died yesterday, Abigail, in the forest. You went for a hike and you fell into a sinkhole near the trail. They found your body this morning." "No, that's not true. I'm right here." You're right here because you haven't accepted it yet. This, she gestured around us, all of this is between. The town, the empty campground, the grave with your name on it. You're stuck between where you were and where you're supposed to go. Where I'm supposed to go. She didn't answer that. You need to go back to the grave. That's where you are. That's where your body is. I don't believe you. Then don't. She shrugged. But you're going to keep experiencing this loop until you accept what happened. The strange texts, the knocking, the note. That's all you trying to warn yourself. The missing person flyer, the abandoned town, the photos that don't exist, it's all because you're not really here anymore. I shook my head. No, I'm alive. I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel the ground under my feet. Memory, she said. Your brain holding on to what it remembers. But it's fading. Haven't you noticed? You can't remember your sister's name. You can't remember what you ate for breakfast yesterday. Soon you won't remember anything at all. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. She was right. The details were slipping away. When had I last eaten? What had I had for breakfast this morning? I couldn't remember. What do? I whispered. Go back to the grave. See it for what it is. Accept it. And then what? Then you can move on. She turned and started walking back toward the road. Wait, I called after her. Where are you going? She looked back over her shoulder. I already moved on. I'm just here to help you do the same. I watched her walk away until she disappeared around a bend in the road. Then I got back in my RV and drove. I don't remember the drive back to the campground. One moment I was at the gas station, the next I was parking at my campsite. It was late afternoon, but the light felt wrong, too bright and too dim at the same time. I walked to the trail. The white blazes on the trees seemed to glow in the fading light. I followed them to the spot where I'd pushed through the palmettos into the clearing. The clearing was still there. The grave was still there. But now there were people, 2 sheriff's deputies and a man in khakis and a windbreaker who looked like he might be a ranger or a detective. They couldn't see me. I walked right up to them, and they didn't react. One of the deputies was taking photographs of the grave. The earth had been partially excavated, and I could see the edge of what looked like a blue tarp. Single female, the man in the windbreaker was saying. Looks like she's been here less than 24 hours. The fall probably killed her instantly. ID? One of the deputies asked. Yeah, we found her RV at Site 17, Abigail Reed from Boston, 34 years old. I looked down at the grave. They were digging me up. I was in there, wrapped in a blue tarp, dead from a fall I didn't remember. But I was also here, standing and watching them. How could both be true? Any next of kin? The deputy asked. Ex-husband in Chicago. We're trying to reach him now. No other family that we can find. Looks like she was traveling alone. I thought about James, about the voicemail I'd left. Would he listen to it? Would he come down here to identify my body? The man in the windbreaker knelt by the grave. Weird thing is, the grave marker was already here. Someone carved her name on it. Fresh paint job, too. She did it herself? The deputy suggested. Maybe she was suicidal? Maybe. Or maybe it's a sick coincidence. We'll know more after the autopsy. They continued working, carefully excavating the earth around the tarp. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was right there, that I wasn't dead. But I couldn't make any sound. My voice was gone. The woman who looked like me, the other me, appeared at the edge of the clearing. She didn't say anything, just stood there watching me. I understood now. The grave wasn't a prediction or a warning. It was a marker for where I'd already fallen, where I'd already died. Everything after that moment, the strange texts, the knocking, the abandoned town, had been me refusing to accept it, my consciousness clinging to the familiar pattern of life even as my body lay buried in the Florida sand. I walked over to the grave and looked down. I could see the edge of the tarp now, and the shape of something inside it. Me. My body. It's time, the other me said quietly. I wanted to argue, to fight, to insist that this couldn't be real. But I was so tired, tired of being confused, tired of the slipping memories, tired of the fear. I sat down at the edge of the grave next to where the deputies were working. They didn't see me. I was already gone. The last thing I remember is the sun setting through the trees, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. And then, nothing. The Marion County Sheriff's Office released the following statement on November 5, 2024. Abigail Reed, 34, of Boston, Massachusetts, was found deceased in Ocala National Forest on November 4th. The preliminary investigation suggests Ms. Reed fell into a concealed sinkhole while hiking alone. The Marion County Medical Examiner has ruled the death accidental. Ms. Reed's family has been notified. Visitors to Ocala National Forest are reminded to stay on marked trails and report any hazardous conditions to park rangers immediately. What the statement didn't mention was the strange evidence they found at the scene: the freshly painted grave marker with her name on it, the note left at her campsite in handwriting that matched her own, and the text messages sent from her phone after the estimated time of death. Messages sent to her own number, warning her to stay away from the clearing. The case was closed as accidental death, but the deputies who worked the scene still talk about it sometimes, usually late at night after a few drinks. They talk about the RV with the engine still warm, even though she'd been dead for at least 12 hours. They talk about the witness statements from town, the waitress who insisted she'd served Abigail Reed lunch the day after she died, the cashier who rang up her groceries, and they talk about the photographs found on her camera, including a selfie taken at the gravesite with her own name on the marker. In the photo, she's smiling, but her eyes are empty. The photo's timestamp reads November 4th, 9:47 a.m., several hours after her estimated time of death. They don't like to talk about that part. Carl, the campground host, quit his job a week later. When asked why, he just said the forest wasn't the same anymore. Sometimes, he said, he'd see campers at Site 17 even though no one was registered there. They'd sit at the picnic table or walk the trails, and if he got close enough, he'd realize they all looked the same. They all looked like Abigail Reed. The last person to camp at Site 17 before it was closed indefinitely was a woman traveling alone in an RV. She checked in on a Thursday afternoon in November. Carl gave her the usual warnings about staying on the trails. The next morning, she was gone. Her RV was still parked at the site, locked up tight, but she never came back. They searched for 3 days, but they never found her. They did find something, though. In the clearing where Abigail Reed had died, someone had added a second grave marker next to the first. It was freshly painted, the black letters still wet. The name on it was Carl's. He saw it himself when he joined the search party, and according to the other searchers, he just stood there staring at it for a long time before he turned around and walked back to his truck. He drove straight to the campground office, packed his things, and left. No one has seen him since. Site 17 remains closed. The nature trail has been rerouted to avoid the clearing. The official reason given is geological instability, too many sinkholes in the area. But sometimes hikers report seeing a woman on the old trail, the closed one that leads to the clearing. She's always alone, always carrying a camera, and she always seems lost. When people try to help her, to warn her that the trail is closed, she thanks them and continues walking. She always says her name is Abigail Reed, and she's always looking for Site 17. My name is Jenna Collins. I need to write this down while I can still remember what's real and what isn't. I've been back from Ocala National Forest for 3 weeks now, but I can still hear it. The whisper. My name, over and over, like someone calling from the bottom of a very deep place. I should start from the beginning. I bought the RV after the divorce was finalized. 22 feet of freedom, I told myself, though it was really just 22 feet of running away. My lawyer said I should take some time, process things. My sister said I should stay with her and the kids for a while. But I needed to be alone. Well, not completely alone. I had Cooper, my 8-year-old golden retriever, and that was enough. Ocala National Forest in Florida seemed like a good choice for my first solo trip. Far enough from Atlanta to feel like a real escape. but not so remote that I'd be completely cut off. The Alexander Springs recreation area had decent reviews, full hookups for the RV, and supposedly some nice hiking trails. I wasn't much of a hiker, but I thought maybe I should become one. Wasn't that what people did when they were finding themselves? I arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. The heat was still oppressive, that thick Florida humidity that makes your clothes stick to your skin within minutes. The campground was maybe half full. A few big motorhomes, some tent campers, a couple of families with screaming kids running around the playground. I pulled into Site 47, which backed up to a thick wall of pines and palmettos. The campground host, an older man with sun-damaged skin and a faded Marlins cap, helped me level the RV and gave me the standard speech about keeping food locked up, watching for alligators near the water, and the quiet hours after 10 p.m. "Anything else I should know?" I asked. He looked at me for a moment, then shook his head. "Stay on the marked trails if you go hiking. Easy to get turned around in these woods." Cooper was anxious during the setup, pacing around the RV and whining at the back window. He was usually calm, almost lazy, but something had him on edge. I figured it was just the new environment, all the strange smells and sounds. I took him for a walk around the campground loop before dinner, let him pee on every third tree, and by the time we got back he seemed more settled. That first night was uneventful. I made spaghetti on the little propane stove, ate it while watching some mindless show on my laptop, and went to bed around 10. Cooper slept on the floor next to the bed, like always. I woke up once around 3 a.m. because he was growling, a low rumble in his chest that I'd only heard a handful of times in his life. I sat up, listened, but didn't hear anything outside. After a few minutes, he settled down and I went back to sleep. The next morning, I decided to explore. There was supposed to be a spring about a mile from the campground, and the temperature was forecast to hit 92, so a swim sounded good. I packed a small backpack with water, sunscreen, and a towel, clipped Cooper to his leash, and headed out around 9 a.m. The trail was well marked at first. Clear signs, blue blazes painted on trees every 100 feet or so. But about 20 minutes in, I came to a fork that wasn't on the map I'd picked up at the ranger station. The right path continued toward the spring, according to the blazes. The left path had no markings at all, just a narrow gap between the palmetto scrub that looked like it might have been a trail once. Cooper pulled toward the left path. Not hard, but insistent, the way he used to pull toward the park when he was younger. I tugged him back. "This way, buddy, the spring's over here." He sat down, just stopped moving entirely, and looked at me with those brown eyes that had gotten cloudy with age. "Come on, Coop. Don't be difficult." He wouldn't budge. I gave up after a minute and decided to check out the unmarked path just to see where it led. Maybe it was a shortcut, or maybe there was something interesting down there. We hadn't gone more than 50 feet when I smelled it. Old water, stagnant and metallic, like pennies left in a puddle. The path opened into a small clearing, maybe 30 feet across. In the center was a well. Not an old-fashioned stone well like in fairy tales, but a concrete cylinder about 3 feet high, with a rusted metal cover that had been pushed halfway off. It looked abandoned, the kind of thing that probably hadn't been used in decades. The concrete was cracked and stained green with moss. Cooper went absolutely still. His ears were pinned back, tail down, every muscle in his body tense. I walked closer, I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or just that weird human compulsion to look at things we know we shouldn't. The cover was heavy, awkward to move, but I managed to push it a few more inches aside and look down. The well was deep. So deep I couldn't see the bottom, just blackness that seemed to swallow the morning light. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointed it down the shaft. The light barely penetrated 20 feet before it was absorbed by the dark. That's when I heard it, just at the edge of my hearing. So faint I thought at first it was wind moving through the trees or some bird I didn't recognize. A whisper. Not words exactly, but something that had the rhythm of speech, like someone talking in another room and you can hear the cadence but not make out what they're saying. I leaned closer, trying to understand, and Cooper barked. Once, sharp and loud, and it broke whatever spell I was under. I stepped back, the hair on my arm standing up. "Okay," I said out loud. "We're leaving." Cooper needed no encouragement. He practically dragged me back toward the main trail. We found the spring, I took a quick swim that didn't feel refreshing at all, and we went back to the RV. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that it was just a creepy old well and my imagination was working overtime because I was stressed and alone and probably not in the best mental state. That afternoon I drove into town, got groceries, and tried to distract myself. But I kept thinking about the well, about that whisper. By the time I got back to the campground around 4 p.m., I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. That night, Cooper wouldn't settle. He kept pacing, going to the back window and whining, then coming back to me, then going to the window again. I let him out around 8, thinking maybe he just needed to pee, but he didn't even try. He just stood at the edge of the campsite, staring into the woods, his body rigid. "What is it, boy?" he whined. Not his normal whine, but something higher pitched, almost frightened. I called him back inside, locked the door, and closed all the blinds. I tried to watch a movie but couldn't focus. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "How's the trip? Kids want to know if you've seen any alligators." I started to reply, then noticed something odd. According to my phone, it was 11:47 p.m., not 9:30. I looked at my watch, also 11:47, but I'd checked the time just a few minutes ago, maybe 5 minutes, and it had been 9:30. I was sure of it. I must have lost track of time. Maybe dozed off. That had to be it. I texted back, "Trip's good, no gators yet. Tell them I love them." I tried to sleep but couldn't. Cooper was pacing again, and I could hear things outside. Not animal sounds exactly, but movements. Footsteps maybe, or something dragging through the leaves. I told myself it was other campers or raccoons or the wind, but it didn't sound like any of those things. Around 2 a.m. I heard a voice. "Jenna." I sat up so fast I hit my head on the low RV ceiling. Cooper was standing at the foot of the bed, growling. The voice came again, muffled by the walls and windows, but clear enough. "Jenna." It was a woman's voice. Familiar somehow, though I couldn't place it. It didn't sound threatening, just calling, like someone was looking for me. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight app, and went to the window. Pulled back the blind an inch and looked out. Nothing. Just darkness and trees and the glow from a nearby camper's porch light. "Hello?" I called out, feeling stupid even as I did it. Silence. Just the normal sounds of the forest at night. Insects, the rustling of leaves, something splashing in a distant pond. I checked my phone again. 4:33 a.m. How had that happened? I just looked at it. It had been 2:00, I was sure. Now it was 4:33, and I had no memory of the time in between. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just sat in the dinette with all the lights on and Cooper pressed against my legs. When dawn finally came, I felt sick with exhaustion and something else. Fear, I guess, though I couldn't articulate what I was afraid of. I should have left then. Packed up the RV and driven straight back to Atlanta. But I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I just had a bad night, that the divorce stress was catching up with me. And there was something else, a strange pull, like I needed to understand what was happening before I could leave. That morning I walked over to the campground host's trailer. He was outside, washing his truck, and he nodded when he saw me. "Morning. Everything okay at your site?" "Yeah, fine. I was just wondering, is there an old well out in the woods, like off the main trail toward the spring?" His expression changed. Not much, but I noticed it. A tightening around the eyes. Could be. These woods are full of old stuff. Homesteads from before the Forest Service took over. Abandoned sugarcane operations. Turpentine camps. If you found something, best to just leave it alone. I wasn't planning to do anything with it, just curious. He looked at me for a long moment. "You hear anything funny out there?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, just people sometimes say they hear things in these woods, especially at night. Sound travels weird among the trees, bounces around. Your mind can play tricks." He went back to washing his truck, clearly done with the conversation. I walked back to my RV slowly, my mind racing. Other people had heard things. I wasn't crazy, but that didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made it worse. I spent that day trying to act normal. Took Cooper for a walk, read a book, made lunch. But I couldn't stop thinking about the well, about my name being called, about the lost time. Around 3 p.m., I met another camper. She was at the bathhouse when I went to take a shower. A woman maybe in her early 40s, thin with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She smiled at me. "First time here?" she asked. "Yeah. You?" "Third year in a row. I love it. So peaceful. I'm Diane, by the way." "Jenna." We chatted for a few minutes. She was traveling solo too, taking a month off work to visit different state parks. She seemed normal, friendly, and I felt pathetically grateful to have someone to talk to. "You should come by my site tonight," she said. "I'm in 32. I'll make a fire. We can have a drink." "That sounds nice. Thank you." Cooper and I walked over to her site around 7. She'd made a good fire and had 2 camping chairs set up, along with a bottle of wine and plastic cups. Her RV was smaller than mine, older, with faded decals and rust spots, but she decorated the site nicely. String lights, a little table, some potted plants. We talked for a while. She asked about my life, and I gave her the sanitized version. Recent divorce, needed a break, first time really camping. She told me about her job in insurance, her grown kids, her late husband who died of cancer 5 years ago. "Do you ever feel like you hear things out here?" I asked, after my second glass of wine had loosened my tongue. "Like voices?" Diane looked at me. Her face was hard to read in the firelight. "What kind of voices?" "I don't know, just someone calling your name. Probably my imagination." "Probably," but something in her tone made me think she didn't believe that. The fire started acting weird around 8:30. It would flare up suddenly, the flames turning a strange blue-green color, then die down to almost nothing. Diane poked at it with a stick, added more wood, but it kept doing the same thing. "That's odd," she said. "The wood's not wet." "Maybe it's treated wood? Chemicals or something?" "Maybe." I stayed until 9, then walked back to my site with Cooper. The night was clear, the stars bright above the trees, and I felt better than I had since arriving. Diane was nice. Normal. Maybe I'd just been overthinking everything. That feeling lasted until about midnight, when Cooper started barking. Not his alert bark, but terrified, frantic barking. I jumped out of bed and found him at the door, his hackles raised, every muscle tense. "What is it?" He kept barking. I looked out the window and saw someone standing at the edge of my campsite, just standing there, not moving, facing the RV. It was Diane. I opened the door. "Diane, are you okay?" She didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there, and in the dim light from my porch lamp I could see she was smiling. Wide. Too wide. "Diane?" She started walking toward me, slow, deliberate steps, and that smile never wavered. Cooper's barking got more frantic. I slammed the door, locked it, and backed away. My heart was hammering. I watched through the window as she kept walking, right up to the RV, and then she stopped, just inches from the door, standing there, smiling. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but I had no signal. Not one bar. That couldn't be right. I'd had full signal all day. "Diane, this isn't funny," I yelled through the door. She raised one hand and knocked. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. "Jenna," she said. Her voice sounded wrong, flat, like she was reading words off a page. "Come out, Jenna. Go away." 3 more knocks. "Jenna, come out." Cooper was going insane, barking and scratching at the door, and I couldn't think, couldn't process what was happening. I went to the back bedroom, pulled all the blinds, and sat on the floor with my arms around Cooper, trying to calm him down. The knocking continued, every few minutes. 3 knocks. My name. "Come out." I don't know how long it went on. Hours, maybe. I lost time again. One moment it was midnight, the next it was 4:17 a.m., and the knocking had stopped. I crept to the front window and looked out. Diane was gone. I didn't sleep. Just waited for dawn, watching the windows, keeping Cooper close. When the sun finally came up, I looked outside. The campsite looked normal. No one there, no sign anyone had been there at all. Except at the edge of the site, right where Diane had first stood, there were footprints in the dirt, and they led toward the woods, toward that unmarked trail, toward the well. I knew I should pack up and leave. I knew it. But I also knew I couldn't. Not yet. Because I needed to understand, needed to know what was happening. And some part of me, some part I didn't want to acknowledge, wanted to go back to the well, wanted to hear what it was whispering. I took Cooper for a walk around the campground first, trying to clear my head, trying to think rationally. When I passed Site 32, Diane's site, I stopped. Her RV was still there, but it looked different. The string lights were gone, the plants were gone. There was no chair, no fire pit. Just the RV, and it looked like it hadn't been moved in a long time. Rust stains down the sides, flat tires, windows so dirty I couldn't see through them. I knocked on the door. No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. Walked around the RV, looking in windows. Empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no supplies, nothing. My hands were shaking. I walked quickly back to my site, got in the RV, and locked the door. Cooper was whining, pacing. I pulled out my phone, tried to call my sister, but still no signal. I tried to start the RV engine. Nothing. Dead battery, even though it had been fine yesterday. That's when I accepted it. I wasn't leaving. Not because I couldn't figure out how to fix the RV or get a signal or call for help. I wasn't leaving because something didn't want me to leave. And I needed to know what it was. I waited until afternoon, until the heat was at its worst and the forest was drowsy and still. Then I put Cooper's leash on and walked toward the unmarked trail. He fought me at first, pulling back, whining. But I was stronger, and eventually he gave up and followed. We reached the clearing with the well around 3 p.m. It looked the same as before. The concrete cylinder, the half-open cover, the smell of stagnant water. I walked right up to it this time, looked down into the darkness. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed, once, twice, 3 times, each echo softer than the last. And then, after the echoes faded, I heard it. Jenna. It was my mother's voice. My mother had drowned when I was 12. Fell through ice on a lake during a winter camping trip. They found her body 3 days later, but by then she'd been underwater so long that I wasn't allowed to see her. Closed casket. I'd never gotten to say goodbye, never gotten any closure. Just the knowledge that she was there one moment and gone the next. Pulled down into dark water. "Mom?" The word came out as a whisper. "Jenna, come down. I've been waiting." Tears were running down my face. I reached toward the opening of the well and Cooper barked. Once, sharp, like he had that first day. I looked at him. He was sitting back on his haunches as far from the well as his leash would allow, and he was shaking. I looked back down into the well. "Mom, Come down, baby. I miss you. Don't you miss me?" "Yes. I miss you every day." "Then come down, come home." I leaned further over the edge. There was a ladder inside, metal rungs bolted into the concrete. I could climb down. Cooper barked again, and something in the sound broke through the fog in my head. I stepped back. My mother's voice had been wrong. Too smooth. Too perfect. My mother had had a slight southern accent, a roughness from years of smoking. This voice had been like Diane's, flat, artificial, reading from a script. "No," I said. The well went silent. Complete, absolute silence. Even the normal sounds of the forest, birds, insects, wind had stopped. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me. Then I heard climbing. Something was coming up the well. The scrape of hands and feet on metal rungs getting closer, and I could see movement in the darkness below. Something pale. something that had too many joints. I ran. Cooper and I tore through the woods, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning. We burst out onto the main trail, and I didn't stop running until we were back at the campground, back at the RV. I locked every door and window, pulled all the blinds, and sat in the middle of the floor with Cooper pressed against me. That was 3 hours ago. It's getting dark now. I can hear something outside circling the RV. Footsteps and voices. My mother's voice, Diane's voice, my own voice from when I was 12 years old, calling to myself, "Jenna, come out, Jenna." Cooper is shaking. I'm shaking. I don't know what to do. I've tried the phone again, no signal. The RV still won't start. I'm trapped here. The worst part is I want to go out there. I want to answer. Part of me is still standing at the edge of that well, looking down, listening to my mother's voice. Part of me wants to climb down those metal rungs and find out what's at the bottom, to finally understand. The knocking has started. 3 knocks. My name. Come out. I'm writing this because I need someone to know what happened here, in case I don't make it, in case I give in to that voice that's calling my name, over and over, from the well and the woods and the darkness outside my door. Cooper just stopped shaking. He's looking at me now, and his eyes are wrong. Cloudy, but not from age, like there's something else looking through them, and he's smiling. I didn't know dogs could smile like that with all their teeth showing, too wide, too hungry. "Jenna," Cooper says in my mother's voice. "Come out." I can hear it now, even through the walls, even through my hands pressed against my ears. The whisper from the well. It's not just calling my name anymore, it's calling everyone's name. Every person who's ever been to this forest, every person who's ever heard it. All our names together, a chorus of whispers rising from deep underground. And I understand now. The well doesn't want to show me what's at the bottom. It wants me to become part of it, to join all the others who heard their names and answered, who climbed down or walked into the woods or opened their doors and never came back as themselves. The knocking is getting louder. The door is shaking. Cooper is still smiling at me with that wrong, too wide smile. I don't know how much longer I can resist. The voice knows everything about me, my mother, my divorce, my loneliness, my grief. It knows exactly what to say, exactly how to make me want to answer. If someone finds this, don't come looking for me. Don't go to Ocala National Forest. Don't look for the unmarked trail or the well in the clearing. And if you hear your name whispered from the trees, from the water, from the darkness, run. Just run. And don't look back. I'm writing this from my apartment in Atlanta. It's been 3 weeks since I left Ocala, or was brought back, or escaped. I'm still not sure which is true. The campground host found me on the 4th morning. I was sitting in my RV, door open, staring at nothing. Cooper was gone. They said I was in shock, dehydrated, malnourished. They said I'd been reported missing when I didn't check out on time, and they'd had to break into the RV to get me. I told them about the well, about Diane, about the voices. They nodded and smiled and said I'd been through a lot of stress. The divorce, the isolation, the heat. They said there was no unmarked trail, no clearing, no well. They said no one named Diane had been registered at the campground. They said Cooper was never with me, that I'd checked in alone. But I remember all of it. I remember Cooper's weight against my legs as I sat terrified in the RV. I remember his bark that saved me from the well. I remember him looking at me with those wrong eyes and speaking in my mother's voice. Sometimes now, late at night, I hear scratching at my door. 3 soft knocks. My name whispered. I never answer. But the worst part is this. Yesterday, I was looking at my phone, scrolling through photos, and I found some from the trip. Pictures I don't remember taking. Pictures that shouldn't exist because my phone had no signal and the battery had died. They're all the same. Just me, in the RV, alone, smiling. That same too wide smile. And in every photo behind me through the window, I can see it. The clearing, the well, the metal cover pushed aside, and someone standing at the edge. Someone who looks exactly like me, but not quite right. Too tall, too still, smiling, waiting. I keep checking the photos, hoping they'll disappear, hoping I imagined them, but they're still there. And in each one, the figure at the well is a little bit closer to the RV, a little bit closer to the door. I think the well didn't let me go. I think it sent me back with something. Or as something. And one morning soon, I'm going to wake up and realize I never left that forest at all. That I'm still in the RV, still sitting in the darkness, still hearing my name whispered from impossibly deep places. Or maybe, and this is what terrifies me most, maybe I did answer. Maybe I did climb down those metal rungs. Maybe what came back isn't me at all, but something wearing my face, living my life, writing these words in my handwriting. How would I know the difference? I just looked in the mirror. My reflection smiled at me before I smiled, just by a second, just enough to notice. And from somewhere far below my apartment, from pipes or sewers or deeper places that have no name, I can hear it. The whisper. My name. Calling. Always calling. My name is Jordan Clark. I need to write this down while I still remember it clearly, while the sequence of events still makes some kind of sense in my head. The police took my initial statement, but they didn't really listen. How could they? I barely believe it myself. This happened 3 weeks ago at an RV campsite near Juniper Springs in Ocala National Forest, Florida. 4 of us went. Me, my best friend Marcus, his girlfriend Vanessa, and Derek, a guy we all knew from college who'd fallen on hard times. The trip was Marcus's idea. He thought I needed to get out after the divorce finalized. He wasn't wrong. I'd been living in my apartment for 2 months, barely leaving except for work. We rented an RV from a place in Gainesville. Nothing fancy, just a 25-footer with a kitchenette, bathroom, and sleeping areas. Marcus drove. I remember Vanessa kept checking her phone even though she knew we'd lose service once we got deep into the forest. Derek sat in back with me, not saying much, which was normal for him. He'd always been quiet, but the last few years had been rough. His sister died, then he lost his job. Marcus felt bad for him, so he invited him along. The drive took about an hour and a half. The forest closed in around us gradually. Pine trees, palmettos, that dense Florida scrubland that looks friendly in daylight, but probably wouldn't at night. We passed a few official campgrounds, but Marcus wanted something more isolated. He'd found a spot online, some dispersed camping area off FR 88. The forum post he'd read said there were a few cleared sites, first come, first served. We turned off the main road around 3 p.m. The dirt road was rough, full of potholes and exposed roots. The RV creaked and groaned. Vanessa made Marcus slow down twice. After about 2 miles, we found the first cleared area. Empty. The second site was another half-mile in, also empty. Third time's the charm, Marcus said. The third site wasn't really a site. It was bigger than the others, maybe 50 yards across, but there was a structure there, a 3-sided shelter, the kind you see on hiking trails. Wooden posts, a tin roof, open on one side, and next to it, a picnic table and a fire pit. That's weird, Vanessa said. Why would there be a shelter at an RV site? Maybe it's for overflow, Marcus suggested, like if the RV spots are full. We parked and got out. It was hot, probably mid-80s and humid, the kind of humid where your shirt sticks to you immediately. The shelter was about 20 feet from where Marcus parked. I walked over to check it out. That's when I noticed the supplies. Inside the shelter, stacked against the back wall, were plastic storage containers, 4 of them, the kind you'd buy at Target. They had lids, but I could see through the semi-opaque plastic that they were full of stuff. "Hey," I called out. "Someone left their things here." Marcus and Vanessa came over. Derek stayed by the RV, smoking. "Maybe they're coming back," Vanessa said. I opened the first container. The smell hit me before I saw what was inside. Not overwhelming, but definitely there. Sour, organic decay. Inside were packages of food, crackers, canned goods, dried pasta, rice. But everything looked wrong. The crackers were in an opened box, and I could see green fuzz on them through the plastic sleeve. The canned goods had rust on them, and one can of beans had a bulge on top. The rice bag had split, and I could see tiny black specks mixed in, mold or insects, I couldn't tell. Jesus, Marcus said, wrinkling his nose. How long has this been here? I checked the other containers. Same thing. Rotted food, or food that had gone bad, or food that looked like it had been sitting there for months. But here's the thing that bothered me. The containers themselves looked new. No sun damage, no wear on the plastic, and they were stacked neatly, lids on properly. This doesn't make sense, I said. If someone abandoned this stuff, why stack it so carefully? And why is the food bad but the containers are fine? Maybe they just bought the container, Vanessa suggested, and filled them with old food they wanted to get rid of. Out here? Why would anyone do that? She didn't have an answer. Derek walked over, flicking his cigarette butt into the woods. What's up? Someone left a bunch of rotted food here, Marcus said. Derek peered into the container I was holding open. His face didn't change much. Derek never showed a lot of emotion, but I saw him take a step back. We should leave. What? Why? This is weird. This whole setup is weird. Why is there a shelter here? Why is there food? We should find another spot. There aren't any other spots, Marcus said. We drove past 2 already. This is the end of the road. Then we go to a regular campground. Those are all full. I checked before we left. Vanessa crossed her arms. I kind of agree with Derek. This feels off. Marcus looked at me. Jordan? I looked around. The clearing was surrounded by dense forest on all sides. The road we came in on disappeared back into the trees. It was quiet. Too quiet, actually. I hadn't heard any birds since we arrived. It's just old food, I said finally. Someone probably left it and forgot about it. We can move the containers away from the shelter if it bothers you. See? Marcus said to Vanessa. It's fine. It wasn't fine, but I didn't want to be the reason we turned back. The divorce had already made me feel like dead weight in everyone's lives. I wasn't going to ruin this trip too. We set up for the night. Derek and I moved the containers to the edge of the clearing as far from our setup as possible. Marcus started the generator and got the RV systems running. Vanessa unpacked the cooler. We'd brought enough food for 3 days. Hot dogs, hamburger meat, beer, soda, chips, the usual camping stuff. By the time we finished, it was almost 6 p.m. The sun was still up, but the shadows were getting longer. The forest seemed to press in closer as the light changed. We decided to cook out. Marcus started a fire in the pit using some of the wood that had been stacked nearby. Another weird detail I noticed but didn't mention. Why would there be firewood already here? The fire took a while to catch. Marcus used lighter fluid, which usually works right away, but the wood just smoldered. Finally, after the 3rd try, it started burning, but the flames looked odd. Not blue or anything dramatic, just pale, less orange than normal. Is that wood treated? Vanessa asked. I don't think so, Marcus said. It's probably just damp. We roasted hot dogs on sticks. Derek didn't eat much. He sat on one of the RV's folding chairs, drinking a beer, staring into the woods. You okay? I asked him. Yeah, just tired. You've been tired for 6 months, man. He didn't respond. After dinner, we sat around the fire. The temperature dropped fast once the sun went down. One of those Florida things where it's sweltering during the day and almost cold at night. Marcus told stories about our college days. Vanessa laughed at all of them, even though she'd probably heard them before. I tried to relax, tried to enjoy it. Around 10 p.m., I noticed something. The fire was getting lower, which was normal, but Marcus hadn't added any wood in over an hour. And yet it was still burning, not brightly, but steadily, with those same pale flames. Did you add wood? I asked Marcus. Huh? No, not in a while. The fire's still going. He looked at it, shrugged. Good wood, I guess. I didn't push it. We turned in around 11 p.m. The RV had 2 sleeping areas, a bed over the cab and a converted dinette. Marcus and Vanessa took the cab bed. I took the dinette. Derek volunteered to sleep in the shelter. "You sure?" Marcus asked. "There's room in here." "I like being outside," Derek said. I almost said something, but I didn't. If Derek wanted to sleep in a creepy shelter next to containers of rotted food, that was his choice. I lay on the dinette bed trying to sleep. The RV creaked in the wind. Or maybe not the wind, because I hadn't felt any wind earlier. Through the window I could see the shelter. Derek had set up a sleeping bag inside and was lying down, facing away from us. I must have dozed off eventually because the next thing I remember is waking up to voices. It was 2:47 a.m. according to my phone. I could hear Marcus and Vanessa talking quietly in the cab bed. I couldn't make out words, but Vanessa sounded upset. Then I heard something else. A rustling sound outside, like someone walking through dry leaves. I sat up and looked out the window. The fire was still burning. Same pale flames, same low intensity. It shouldn't have been possible. We'd been asleep for hours, and Derek wasn't in the shelter. I got up and went to the RV door. Marcus was still talking to Vanessa, so I didn't bother them. I opened the door as quietly as I could and stepped outside. The temperature had dropped significantly. My breath made little clouds in the air. The clearing was dark except for the fire and the faint glow from the RV's interior lights. "Derek?" I called softly. No answer. I walked toward the shelter. His sleeping bag was there, unzipped from the inside, spread open. His shoes were gone. "Derek?" I called again, louder this time. Movement in the trees. I turned and saw a shape, tall, human-sized, standing about 30 feet into the forest. "Derek, that you?" The shape didn't move, didn't respond. My heart started pounding. I took a step forward. "Hey man, you okay?" The shape turned and walked deeper into the woods. Not running, just walking. Steady, deliberate steps. I should have gone back to the RV. I should have woken up Marcus. Instead, I followed. The forest was dense with palmetto scrub and pine trees. I used my phone's flashlight to see, but it didn't help much. The shape stayed ahead of me, always just at the edge of visibility. "Derek, what are you doing?" No answer. Just that steady walking. I followed for maybe 5 minutes. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to turn back, but something kept me moving forward. Maybe it was concern for Derek. Maybe it was something else. Then the shape stopped. I stopped too, about 20 feet away. The figure was standing in front of a tree, a large pine with Spanish moss hanging from the lower branches. I raised my phone light to get a better look. It was Derek. He was facing the tree, his back to me, not moving, not making a sound. "Derek?" He didn't turn around. I walked closer, 10 feet, 5 feet, close enough to touch his shoulder. "Derek, you need to come back to..." He spun around. His face was blank. That's the only way I can describe it. Not expressionless, not calm. Blank. Like someone had erased everything that made it human and left only the basic features. His eyes were open but not focused on anything. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. Derek smiled, but it wasn't his smile. It was too wide, too symmetrical. It didn't reach his eyes. "Jordan," he said. His voice sounded normal, but something was wrong with the timing. Like there was a delay between his mouth moving and the sound coming out. "What are you doing out here?" I wanted to see. "See what? What's out here?" He kept smiling, that wrong, too wide smile. "We need to go back," I said. "Okay." He walked past me back toward the clearing. I followed, keeping my distance. My hands were shaking and I couldn't get that smile out of my head. We made it back to the RV. Derek went straight to the shelter, crawled into his sleeping bag and lay down. I stood there for a moment watching him, then went back inside. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Derek acted like nothing had happened. He was up before any of us, making coffee on the RV's stove when I emerged from the dinette bed. "Morning," he said. Casual, normal. "Morning," I replied. You, you remember last night? What about it? You went into the woods. He looked at me, and for a second I thought I saw confusion in his eyes. Then he shrugged. Must have been sleepwalking. I do that sometimes. Since when? Since forever. My mom used to find me in the kitchen in the middle of the night when I was a kid. I didn't know if that was true or not. In all the years I'd known Derek, he'd never mentioned sleepwalking. Marcus and Vanessa woke up around 8 a.m. We made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, bacon. Everything seemed normal, but I kept watching Derek, looking for signs of whatever I'd seen last night. That blank face, that wrong smile. He seemed fine. Quiet, like always, but fine. So what's the plan today? Vanessa asked, sipping coffee. I was thinking we could hike to Juniper Springs, Marcus said. It's supposed to be beautiful. Crystal clear water, lots of wildlife. How far is it? Maybe 3 miles. There's a trail that starts about a mile back on the main road. Sounds good, I said, mostly because I wanted to get away from this clearing. Away from that shelter, and those containers of rotted food and that fire that wouldn't die. We packed light, just water bottles, some snacks, and our phones, even though we knew there'd be no service. Derek came with us, though I could tell he didn't want to. He kept looking back at the clearing as we walked to the main road. The trail was easy to find. A weathered wooden sign marked the entrance. Juniper Springs, 7 miles. The path was narrow, winding through palmetto scrub and pine forest. It was hot again, probably close to 90, and humid enough that we were all sweating within 10 minutes. Marcus led, followed by Vanessa, then me, then Derek. We talked at first, about nothing important, just filling the silence. But after about a mile, we all went quiet. The forest had a way of making conversation feel intrusive. I kept checking my phone. No service, obviously, but I noticed something else. The time was wrong. According to my phone, it was 9:47 a.m. But we'd left the RV at 10:15 a.m. I'd checked specifically because Vanessa wanted to make sure we'd be back before dark. Hey, I called to Marcus. What time is it? He pulled out his phone. 10:42. Mine says 9:47. Your phone's probably just glitching. We're in a dead zone. Maybe, but it bothered me. We hiked for another hour. Or what felt like an hour. My phone time kept jumping around. Forward, backward, forward again. At one point it said 8:03 a.m., which was before we'd even woken up. Guys, I said, stopping. Something's wrong with the time. Marcus and Vanessa stopped too. We all compared phones. Marcus, 11:58 a.m. Vanessa, 10:12 a.m. Me, 9:02 a.m. Derek, 1:34 p.m. That's not possible, Vanessa said. Dead zone, Marcus repeated, but he didn't sound confident anymore. That doesn't explain Derek's phone being 2 hours ahead. We stood there, the four of us, looking at each other. The forest was quiet again. No birds, no insects, nothing. Let's just keep going, Marcus said finally. The springs can't be far. But they were far. We walked for another hour, or what felt like an hour, and saw no signs of water. The trail kept winding through the same scenery. Pine trees, palmetto scrub, occasional oak trees draped with Spanish moss. It all started to look identical. Are we lost? Vanessa asked. No, we're following the trail. Then where are the springs? Marcus didn't have an answer. Derek had fallen behind. I waited for him to catch up. When he did, I noticed he was breathing hard, even though we'd been moving slowly. You okay? He nodded. But his eyes had that same blank look from last night, not quite focused, not quite there. Derek? I'm fine. He wasn't fine. We kept walking. The trail curved left, then right, then left again. The trees closed in on both sides, making the path feel narrower than it had been before. Then Vanessa stopped. Wait. What? This tree. She pointed to an oak tree about 10 feet off the trail. We've passed this tree before. What? No, we haven't. Yes, we have. I remember because of the way the moss hangs. It looks like a face. I looked at the tree. She was right. The moss did look like a face. 2 dark spots for eyes, a dragging strand for a mouth. "We're going in circles," Vanessa said. "That's impossible. We've been following the trail." "Then explain the tree." Marcus didn't have an explanation. Neither did I. We'd been moving forward the entire time, never backtracking, never turning around. But somehow we'd ended up in the same place. "Let's just keep going," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its confidence. We walked for 10 more minutes, then we saw the tree again. Same oak, same face in the moss. "Fuck this," Vanessa said. "We're going back to the RV." "Which direction is that?" She pointed back the way we'd come. "That way." We turned around and started walking. The trail looked the same in both directions, narrow, winding, enclosed by trees. After about 20 minutes, we should have reached the trailhead. Instead, we found the tree again. Same oak, same mossy face. "This isn't happening," Vanessa whispered. Derek sat down on the ground. He wasn't breathing hard anymore. He wasn't breathing hard at all, actually, which was strange considering the heat and humidity. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. "Derek?" I knelt next to him. "Hey, man, look at me." He looked at me and smiled. That same too wide smile from last night. "We need to stop," he said. "Stop what?" "Moving. We need to stop moving. If we stop, we'll never get out of here. We're not supposed to get out." The way he said it made my stomach drop. Not "we can't get out. We're not supposed to get out." Like this was intentional. Like something wanted us here. "Jordan," Marcus called. "Come look at this." I walked over to where he and Vanessa were standing. Marcus was pointing at the ground just off the trail. At first, I didn't see what he was looking at. Then I did. Footprints. Our footprints. 4 sets, leading away from where we stood. But we hadn't walked that way. We'd stayed on the trail the entire time. Except the footprints weren't quite right. 3 sets were normal. Boot prints, sneaker prints, the kind you'd expect. But the fourth set was wrong. The prints were too deep, like whoever made them was carrying extra weight. And the spacing was off, too close together, like someone walking with a strange, shuffling gait. "Who made those?" Vanessa asked. None of us answered, but we all knew. The 4th set belonged to Derek. I turned to look at him. He was still sitting on the ground, smiling. "Derek," I said carefully, "stand up." "Okay." He stood, and when he did, I saw his shoes. The soles were caked with dark, reddish mud. Fresh mud. But the ground around us was dry. We hadn't passed any mud on the trail. "Where did you go?" I asked him. "Nowhere. Your shoes are covered in mud." He looked down at his shoes, then back at me, still smiling. "I don't know." Vanessa grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to leave, now." "I don't know how." "Then figure it out." We tried, for the next 2 hours, or what felt like 2 hours, but who knows with our phones acting crazy. We tried every direction. Forward, backward, left into the woods, right into the woods. Every time we ended up at that same oak tree with the mossy face. Derek didn't say anything. He just followed us, always a few steps behind, always smiling. At some point, Vanessa started crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears running down her face. Marcus tried to comfort her, but I could see he was barely holding it together himself. I was terrified, but I was also angry. Angry at Marcus for bringing us here. Angry at myself for going along with it. Angry at Derek for being whatever he was now. "Derek," I said, turning to face him. "What happened to you last night?" "Nothing happened." "Bullshit. Something happened. You went into the woods and came back different." "I'm the same." "No, you're not." He stopped smiling. For the first time since last night, his expression changed. He looked sad. No, not sad. Disappointed. "You're not listening," he said. "Listening to what?" "The forest." And then, Like someone had flipped a switch, we were back at the trailhead. The wooden sign was right in front of us. Juniper Springs, 7 miles. Behind us was the main road. We stood there, stunned. None of us moved for a full minute. "How?" Vanessa started, but didn't finish. Marcus grabbed her hand. "Let's just go. Back to the RV. We're packing up and leaving." We practically ran back to the clearing. The whole way I kept expecting the forest to shift again, to trap us in another loop. But it didn't. We made it to the RV without incident. The clearing looked the same as we'd left it. The shelter was still there, empty. The containers of rotted food were still at the edge of the woods. The fire was still burning with those pale flames. "Pack everything," Marcus said. "We're leaving in 10 minutes." We moved fast. Marcus started the generator and began disconnecting the hookups we hadn't even connected. Vanessa threw our supplies into bags. I collapsed the chairs and folding table. Derek didn't help. He just stood by the shelter watching us. "Derek, get your stuff," I called to him. "I'm not going." "What?" "I'm staying here." Marcus stopped what he was doing. "Like hell you are. Get in the RV." "I can't." "You can and you will. Jordan, help me." I walked over to Derek. Up close, I could see that blank look again, more pronounced than before. His eyes were slightly unfocused. His skin looked paler, almost gray. "Derek, please," I said quietly. "Come with us. I belong here now." "You don't belong anywhere, you're sick. Whatever happened last night, it did something to you. We'll get you to a hospital, get you checked out." "I'm not sick." "Then what are you?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked into the shelter. Marcus came up beside me. "Fuck this. We'll drag him if we have to." But when we got to the shelter, Derek was already in his sleeping bag facing the wall. His eyes were closed. He might have been asleep, or he might have just been pretending. "Derek," Marcus said loudly. "Get up." Nothing. Marcus knelt down and shook his shoulder. "Derek!" Derek's eyes snapped open. He rolled over and looked at us, and he was smiling again, that same wrong smile. "I'm staying," he said calmly. "No, you're not. You should stay too." "What? All of you. You should stay. It's better here." Marcus stood up, backing away. Jesus Christ. "What's wrong with him?" Vanessa asked from behind us. "I don't know," I said. But I did know. Something had taken Derek. Something in the forest, or in this clearing, or in that shelter with its containers of rotted food. Whatever it was, Derek wasn't Derek anymore. "We can't leave him," Vanessa said. "We can't take him either," Marcus replied. "Look at him." Derek was sitting up now, still smiling. "The shelter has everything you need: food, water, safety." "The food is rotted," I said. "No, it's not." "Yes, it is. We saw it yesterday. It's all molded and spoiled. Look again." I didn't want to look again. I wanted to get in the RV and drive as far away from this place as possible. But something made me walk to the edge of the clearing where we'd moved the containers. I opened the first one. The food was fresh. Crackers in an unopened box. Cans with no rust, no bulges. Rice in a sealed bag with no mold, no insects. "That's not possible," I whispered. I opened the other containers, all the same. Fresh food, clean supplies, as if we'd just bought everything yesterday. But I'd seen the rot. I'd smelled it. Unless I'd been meant to see it that way. Unless the forest, or whatever lived in the forest, wanted us to think the food was bad so we wouldn't eat it, wouldn't stay, wouldn't become like Derek. I walked back to the shelter. "The food's fresh now." "What?" Marcus said. "It was rotted yesterday. Today it's fresh." That doesn't make any sense. None of this makes sense. We stood there, the three of us, looking at Derek. He was still smiling, still sitting in his sleeping bag, still watching us with those unfocused eyes. "Derek," I said one more time. "Please come with us." "I can't leave." "Why not?" "I have to stay. Someone has to stay." "For what?" "To wait." "For who?" He didn't answer, just lay back down and closed his eyes. Marcus made the decision. We're leaving. We'll call for help once we get service. Send a ranger or the police or whoever deals with this kind of thing. We can't just leave him, Vanessa protested. We can't stay. She looked at Derek one more time, then at the shelter, then at the forest surrounding us. Okay, let's go. We got into the RV. Marcus started the engine. I looked out the window one last time and saw Derek standing in the shelter entrance watching us leave, still smiling. Marcus put the RV in reverse, turned it around, and started down the dirt road. We made it about a quarter mile before the road vanished. Not like it ended or got blocked. It vanished. 1 second we were driving on the rutted dirt track we'd come in on. The next second we were driving through dense forest with no road at all. Marcus slammed on the brakes. What the fuck? Back up, Vanessa said. He did. But when we reversed, there was no road behind us either. Just trees. This isn't possible, Marcus said, but his voice was shaking. Turn around. Try another direction. He tried. We drove in every direction we could, crashing through palmetto scrub and low branches, the RV's body scraping against tree trunks. But there was no road, no trail, no way out. After 20 minutes, we were back at the clearing. Derek was still standing in the shelter, still smiling. You can't leave, he called out. Not until you understand. Understand what? I shouted. This is where you're supposed to be. Marcus tried again, and again. Every time the road disappeared, every time we ended up back at the clearing. The sun was setting by the time we gave up. We sat in the RV, doors locked, lights on, not speaking. The fire outside was still burning with those pale flames. Derek had gone back to his sleeping bag. We're going to die here, Vanessa whispered. No, Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced. My phone said 11:34 p.m., or maybe it said 4:16 a.m. I'd stopped paying attention to the time. We need a plan, I said. What plan? We can't leave. The forest won't let us. So we wait until morning, try again in daylight. You think that'll make a difference, and I didn't. But I said maybe. We sat in silence for a while. Then Vanessa spoke up. What did Derek mean about waiting? Someone has to stay to wait. Wait for what? I don't know. What if this is some kind of trap? What if the shelter, the food, the fire? What if it's all designed to keep people here? For what purpose? I don't know, but think about it. Someone left that food there. Someone built that shelter. Someone wanted people to come here and stay. She was right. It made sense in a horrible, twisted way. The shelter with its fresh but rotted food. The fire that never went out. The forest that looped back on itself. The road that disappeared. It was all designed to trap us. And Derek had already been caught. We need to destroy it, I said. Destroy what? The shelter. The containers. The fire. All of it. If this is a trap, we need to break it. Marcus looked at me. You think that'll work? I don't know. But we can't just sit here. He nodded slowly. Okay, tomorrow morning. We burn it all. But we didn't make it to morning. Around 3 a.m., or what my phone said was 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Tapping, like someone knocking on the RV's door. I sat up, heart racing. The RV was dark except for the small light above the dinette. Marcus and Vanessa were still asleep in the cab bed. The tapping continued. Slow, rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. I got up and looked out the window. Derek was standing outside the door, not smiling this time. His face was blank again, empty. He tapped on the door 3 more times, then turned and walked toward the shelter. I should have stayed inside. I should have woken Marcus and Vanessa. Instead, I unlocked the door and followed him. The clearing was cold, maybe 50 degrees. The fire was still burning, pale flames casting weird shadows. Derek was standing by the shelter, facing the containers of food. Derek, I said quietly. He turned. You need to eat. What? The food. You need to eat it. I'm not hungry. You will be. You'll get so hungry, and then you'll eat, and then you'll understand. Understand what? What I understand. He walked into the shelter and picked up one of the containers, brought it over to me and set it down. Opened the lid. The food inside was rotted again. Green mold on the crackers. Rusted cans. Split bags of rice crawling with black specks. Eat, Derek said. No. You have to. I'm not eating rotted food. It's not rotted. I can see the mold, Derek. Then look closer. I didn't want to look closer, but I did anyway. The mold on the crackers wasn't mold. It was moving, shifting, forming patterns. The rust on the cans wasn't rust. It was something darker, something wet. The black specks in the rice weren't insects. They were eyes. Hundreds of tiny eyes, all opening and closing, all looking at me. I stumbled backward, the container falling from my hands. Jesus Christ, Derek smiled. Now you see. What is that? The forest. It's alive. It's always been alive. And it's hungry. Stay away from me. I'm trying to help you, Jordan. If you eat, you'll become part of it. Like me. It won't hurt anymore. You won't feel anything. I don't want that. Yes, you do. You're so tired. So sad, so broken. The forest can fix you. It fixed me. You're not fixed. I didn't finish, because I didn't know what he was. Possessed? Transformed? Something else entirely. Derek took a step toward me. The shelter is a gift. The food is a gift. All you have to do is accept it. I'm not accepting anything from this place. You will. Eventually, everyone does. Behind me, I heard the RV door open. Marcus and Vanessa were getting out, probably wondering where I'd gone. Jordan? Marcus called. What are you doing? Get back inside, I shouted, but it was too late. Derek was already walking toward them, still smiling. You all need to eat, he said. Derek, stop, Vanessa said. He didn't stop. He kept walking, one hand outstretched, reaching for Vanessa. Marcus stepped between them. I said stop. Derek's hand touched Marcus's arm, and Marcus screamed. I've heard people scream before, in pain, in fear, in anger. But this was different. This was the sound of someone's entire existence being ripped apart and reassembled wrong. Marcus collapsed, clutching his arm where Derek had touched him. Vanessa tried to grab him, but I pulled her back. Don't touch him. He's hurt. He's changing. Marcus was on the ground, convulsing. His eyes rolled back. His mouth opened and closed like he was trying to speak but couldn't form words. Then he stopped moving. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Vanessa was sobbing, trying to get to him, but I held her back. Derek just stood there watching. Marcus sat up slowly. His movements were stiff, mechanical. He turned his head to look at us, and I saw his eyes were unfocused, just like Derek's. It's better now, Marcus said. His voice was flat, emotionless. I understand now. Marcus, Vanessa whispered. You should understand too. He stood up and started walking toward her. I didn't think. I just grabbed Vanessa and ran. We crashed through the forest, branches whipping our faces, palmetto fronds slicing our arms. Behind us, I could hear them following. Derek and Marcus moving together, steady and relentless. We ran for what felt like hours. The forest stayed dark the entire time. No hint of sunrise, even though it should have been dawn by now. My lungs burned. My legs felt like they were going to give out. Vanessa was ahead of me, somehow finding the strength to keep moving. Then she stopped so suddenly I almost crashed into her. We were back at the clearing. The RV was there. The shelter was there. The fire was still burning. And standing by the shelter waiting for us were Derek and Marcus, still smiling. You can't leave, Derek said. We tried to explain. You can't leave until you understand. Vanessa collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I wanted to comfort her, but I was barely holding myself together. What do you want from us? I asked. Nothing, Marcus said. We want to help you. By turning us into whatever you are. By freeing you. From pain, from sadness, from everything that hurts. I don't want to be free from that. You will. They started walking toward us. slow, methodical steps. I helped Vanessa up, and we backed toward the RV. "Get inside," I told her. "Lock the doors. Don't let them in." "What about you?" "Just do it." She ran to the RV. I heard the door open, then slam shut, then the click of the locks. Derek and Marcus stopped about 10 feet away from me. "Jordan," Derek said, "you're suffering. You have been for so long. Since the divorce. Since before that. You carry so much pain." He was right. The divorce had been the culmination of years of problems. My ex-wife had tried to help me, tried to get me to open up, but I couldn't. I'd just retreated further inside myself, letting the depression and guilt consume me. "The forest can take that away," Derek continued. "All of it. You won't remember the pain, you won't remember anything, just peace. Just quiet." "That's not peace, that's oblivion." "What's the difference?" I didn't have an answer. Marcus spoke up. "I fought it too at first, but Derek helped me see. It's not death, Jordan, it's transformation. We become part of something bigger, something eternal, something that eats people, something that gives them purpose." They moved closer. I backed up against the RV door. "Vanessa," I shouted, "start the engine." I heard the generator kick on, then the rumble of the RV's engine starting. But we both knew it wouldn't matter. The forest would just swallow the road again. Derek reached for me, and I did the only thing I could think of. I ran toward the fire. The pale flames didn't burn like normal fire. They were cold, sending chills through me as I got close. But I didn't stop. I grabbed a piece of burning wood. It felt like ice in my hand, and threw it at the shelter. The wood hit the roof. The tin immediately caught fire, but the flames were wrong. Black instead of orange, spreading in unnatural patterns. Derek and Marcus stopped. For the first time, their expressions changed. Not fear exactly, but something close to it. "What are you doing?" Derek asked. "Destroying it," I said. I grabbed more wood and threw it at the containers of food. They caught fire too, the plastic melting and releasing a smell so foul I gagged. But I kept going, throwing burning wood at anything I could reach. The shelter was fully ablaze now, black flames consuming the structure. And as it burned, I heard screaming. Not human screaming, something deeper, more primal, like the forest itself was crying out in pain. Derek and Marcus were on the ground clutching their heads. Their blank expressions were gone, replaced by agony. "Stop!" Marcus shouted. "You're killing it." "Good." I grabbed the last piece of burning wood and threw it at the fire pit itself. The pale flames erupted, shooting 20 feet into the air, turning from pale to brilliant white to nothing. And then everything stopped. The fire went out. The shelter collapsed into ash. The containers melted into puddles of plastic. The forest was silent. Derek and Marcus were lying on the ground, not moving. I ran over to them, checked for pulses. Marcus had a pulse. Weak, but there. Derek didn't. The RV door opened. Vanessa came out looking shell-shocked. "Is it over?" she asked. "I think so." We got Marcus into the RV. He was unconscious but breathing. Vanessa tried the ignition, and the RV started normally. She put it in drive and headed toward the road. The road was there. Rutted and rough, but there. We followed it out, neither of us speaking. Both of us afraid that if we said anything, the forest would change its mind and trap us again. We made it to the main road, then to civilization. We stopped at the first gas station we found and called 911. The ambulance took Marcus. The police took our statements, but I could tell they didn't believe us. Why would they? Haunted forests and possessed people and fires that don't go out. It sounds insane. Marcus woke up 2 days later with no memory of what happened. The doctor said it was trauma-induced amnesia. Maybe it was. Or maybe the forest took those memories when I destroyed the shelter. Derek's body was never found. The police searched the clearing, but there was no trace of him. No shelter, no containers, no fire pit. Just an empty clearing in the middle of Ocala National Forest. I've been trying to forget what happened, but I can't. Every night I dream about Derek standing in that shelter smiling, about Marcus convulsing on the ground, about those eyes in the rice opening and closing, watching me, and sometimes late at night I wonder if I really destroyed it, or if it's still out there waiting, building a new shelter, stocking new containers with rotted food that isn't really rotted, waiting for the next group of people stupid enough to stay. My name is Jordan Clark, and I think I left something behind in that forest. Something important. I think I left a part of my soul. My name is Daniel King. I'm writing this down because I need someone to understand what happened at Fish Lake National Forest last October. I need someone to believe me, even though I'm not sure I believe it myself anymore. Maya and I had been planning the trip for months. We'd rented a 32-foot RV from a place in Salt Lake City, one of those newer models with the slide-outs and a full kitchen. Neither of us had ever driven something that big before, and Maya kept making jokes about us jackknifing into a ditch somewhere on the mountain roads. She was always like that, turning her nerves into humor. We'd been together 2 years, met at a coffee shop where she worked while finishing her master's in environmental science. I was a freelance photographer, mostly corporate work, occasionally landscapes when I could afford to take the time. This trip was supposed to be about disconnecting. No cell service, no emails, just us and the aspen groves turning gold before winter. The drive from Salt Lake took about 3 hours. We stopped in Richfield for groceries, enough food for 5 days, plus extra water because Maya had read something about the campground wells being unreliable. The woman at the checkout counter asked where we were headed. When Maya told her Fish Lake, she got this look on her face. Not unfriendly exactly, just careful. "You two be safe up there," she said. "Season's changing. Gets dark early now." Maya thanked her and we left. In the parking lot, she laughed about it. "What do you think she meant by that? Bear attacks? Serial killers?" "Probably just being nice," I said, though something about the woman's tone stuck with me. The campground was more isolated than the photos suggested. We'd booked online, Site 14, which was supposed to have full hookups and a fire ring. The access road turned from pavement to gravel about 6 miles before the entrance, and the trees pressed close on both sides. The aspens were beautiful, but there was something oppressive about how they blocked out the sky. We were the only ones there. The ranger station at the entrance was empty, just a bulletin board with faded notices about fire safety and bear protocols. There was a payment envelope system. You were supposed to fill out your information and drop cash or a check in a locked box. Very honor system. Very 1985. "Creepy," Maya said, but she was smiling. She liked this kind of thing, the isolation, the self-reliance. I'd always been more of a Hampton Inn person, but I was trying. Site 14 was at the back of the campground, surrounded by aspens on 3 sides and facing a small clearing. The fire ring was there, along with a weathered picnic table. The hookups worked: water, electricity, even a sewer connection. I got us leveled and connected while Maya explored the area. She came back 15 minutes later saying she'd found a trail that supposedly led to Fish Lake itself, about 2 miles through the trees. "We should hike it tomorrow morning," she said, "early before it gets too warm." That first night was fine. We made dinner in the RV, pasta with marinara, garlic bread, a bottle of red wine. Maya put on music from her phone since we'd downloaded playlists before losing service. We played cards at the dinette table and she kept winning, which always made her cocky in this endearing way. Around 11 we heard something outside. Not close, but not far either. A sound like someone dragging something heavy through leaves. Maya went to the window. Probably a deer. Deer don't drag things. Maybe it's limping or carrying a branch in its mouth. I didn't argue, but I got up and locked the door. We'd left it unlocked until then. We went to bed in the RV's rear bedroom. The mattress was decent enough, though the sheets smelled like rental, that specific combination of industrial detergent and plastic packaging. Maya fell asleep within minutes. She always did. I lay awake longer, listening to the sounds outside. Wind in the aspens, the occasional creak of trees. Nothing unusual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was listening back. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I remember is opening my eyes to darkness. Except it wasn't darkness. The window beside the bed showed early morning light, that blue-gray quality just before sunrise. I should have been looking at the ceiling, but instead I was facing the wrong direction. The bedroom felt different. Wrong. I tried to sit up and couldn't. My body didn't respond the way it should. My arms felt heavier, longer. When I looked down at my hands, they weren't my hands. They were Maya's. I could see her rings on the fingers. The silver one her sister gave her. The jade band she'd bought in Seattle. Her nail polish chipped on the thumb. Her hands. I want to be clear about this. I wasn't looking at Maya's hands across the bed. I was looking at them where my hands should be. At the ends of arms that were too thin, too smooth. I touched my face, her face, and felt features that weren't mine. Smaller nose, different jaw, hair longer, softer. The panic was immediate and complete. I tried to scream and heard Maya's voice come out. Tried to move and felt her body respond, unfamiliar and wrong in every dimension. I looked to my right. There, in the bed beside me, was my body. Lying on its side, breathing slowly, peacefully asleep. I need to stop here and say that I'm not schizophrenic. I've never had hallucinations, never done heavy drugs. The strongest thing I'd had the night before was 2 glasses of wine. This wasn't a dream. I've had vivid dreams before, and they feel different, looser, less anchored. This felt real with an intensity that dreams never achieve. I sat there in Maya's body for what might have been 5 minutes or 30. Time felt elastic. Eventually, the body that was mine stirred and opened its eyes. They focused on me, and for a moment there was confusion there. Then recognition, then something else. Daniel. The voice was mine, but the inflection was wrong. The way the question lifted at the end, the slight hesitation, it was Maya's speech pattern coming from my throat. "What's happening?" I said, and heard her voice shake. "What the fuck is happening?" The person in my body sat up slowly, looking down at hands that should have been mine, touched a face that should have been mine. The expression that crossed those features was hard to read. Shock. Maybe, but also something calculating. "I don't know," she said, using my voice. "I woke up and... this is wrong. This is so wrong." We sat there staring at each other. I could see myself from the outside now. Needed a shave, hair messy from sleep, the small scar above my left eyebrow from a bike accident in college. Everything exactly as it should be, except someone else was wearing it. "We need to figure this out," Maya said through my voice. She was already trying to sound calm, rational. That was like her. She was better in crises than I was. "This has to be, I don't know, some kind of shared delusion, carbon monoxide?" "I feel fine," I said. "I mean, I feel like me, just not in the right body." He, I didn't know the pronouns anymore, got out of bed and went to the bathroom. I heard the door close, then the sound of water running. When she came back, there was something off in the way she moved. Too careful, like she was learning how my body worked. "The mirror shows what we're seeing," she said. "I look like you. You look like me. This isn't possible. I know it's not possible, but it's happening." We spent the next hour trying to make sense of it. Checked the RV for gas leaks. Nothing. Tried to remember if we'd eaten anything unusual. Nothing beyond what we'd brought from Richfield. Maya, in my body, suggested we drive back to town, find a hospital, get checked for neurological issues or toxins. "Both of us having the exact same hallucination?" I said. "That doesn't make medical sense either." Nothing about this makes sense. We didn't leave, though. Part of it was the surreal paralysis of the situation. Part of it was that Maya insisted we should wait, see if it resolved on its own. "Give it a few hours," she said. "Maybe we're still asleep somehow. Maybe we'll wake up normal." But I think part of it was something else. Something I didn't want to admit yet. When I looked at her, at my body with her inside it, I could see something in the eyes that wasn't quite right. A hesitation, like she was performing being upset rather than actually feeling it. We made breakfast. Everything felt wrong. Using hands that weren't mine, seeing from a different height, even my voice in my own ears was someone else's. Maya moved around the RV kitchen with my body, cracking eggs and toasting bread, and I noticed she was comfortable. Too comfortable, like she'd already adjusted. "Does it feel weird to you?" I asked. "Being in my body?" She paused, spatula in hand. "Of course it feels weird. This is insane." "But you're managing it. You're moving around like you've been in there for years, not hours." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, I can barely coordinate these hands, but you're fine." She turned back to the stove. "Maybe I'm just better at adapting." We ate in silence. The food tasted different, or maybe Maya's taste buds were different from mine. I couldn't tell anymore where perception ended and reality began. After breakfast, Maya suggested we still do the hike. "We came here to be outside. Maybe moving around will help. Clear our heads." I didn't want to hike. I wanted to curl up and wait for this to end. But she insisted, and I didn't have the energy to argue. So we put on shoes, which felt bizarre. My feet were smaller now, and I had to wear Maya's hiking boots, and headed out toward the trail she'd found the day before. The forest was beautiful in an oppressive way. The aspens created corridors of gold and white, their leaves rustling in the morning breeze. But there was something watchful about it. The spaces between the trees felt occupied by something more than shadow. We walked for maybe 20 minutes before I realized the trail markers were wrong. Maya had described the path as well-maintained, with regular signs indicating distance to the lake. But the markers we were passing were hand-carved, crude things nailed to trees, and they weren't pointing toward the lake. They just had numbers on them. 7, 12, 4. "Did you see these yesterday?" I asked. Maya, in my body, several feet ahead, glanced back. "See what?" "The numbers, on the trees." She looked at the marker nearest to us, the one with 4 carved into it. "That's probably just, I don't know, trail maintenance codes or something." "They're not maintenance codes. Look at them. They're hand-carved." She shrugged and kept walking. The casualness bothered me. Yesterday, Maya would have been fascinated by something like this. She would have taken photos, made theories. Now she seemed eager to dismiss it and move on. The trail curved deeper into the woods. The aspens gave way to denser pine, and the light changed. Less gold, more gray. I started to feel like we were going the wrong direction, that the trail was leading us somewhere other than the lake. But when I mentioned it, Maya said we should keep going. "We've come this far. I think we should go back, just a little farther." There was something in her voice that made me stop walking. An insistence that felt less like Maya's usual enthusiasm and more like compulsion, like she needed to get somewhere specific. "No," I said. "I want to go back to the RV." She turned around, and for just a second, the expression on my face, the face I'd worn for 31 years, was completely alien. The eyes were wrong, the set of the mouth. Then it shifted back to something familiar, something concerned. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. "No, I'm not feeling okay. I woke up in the wrong body. Nothing is okay." "I know. I'm sorry. Let's head back." We turned around, but the trail behind us looked different. The markers we'd passed, 7, 12, 4, were gone. The trees seemed denser, the path narrower. Maya noticed it too. I could tell by the way she stopped and looked around. "This isn't right," she said quietly. "No shit." We tried retracing our steps, but everything had changed. The aspens we'd walked through were now pine groves. The trail split in directions we didn't remember seeing. And the light was wrong. It should have been late morning by now, but the forest seemed darker, like dusk was coming early. Eventually, we found the campground, not by following the trail, but by literally stumbling out of the trees into the clearing where our RV sat. Maya's relief was palpable. Mine was mixed with something else. The feeling that the forest had let us go rather than us finding our way. The rest of that day passed in a haze. We stayed in the RV, barely talking. Maya spent time looking at himself, in the bathroom mirror, studying my features like they were a puzzle to solve. I tried to nap and couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the wrongness of the body I was in, the weight and shape of it alien. Night came early, like the checkout woman had warned. By 5 o'clock the light was nearly gone. We made dinner, sandwiches, nothing that required much effort, and ate mechanically. The music Maya had loved the night before now seemed grating. She turned it off without me asking. Around 8, she said she was tired and went to bed. I stayed up, sitting at the dinette table, looking out the window at the darkness between the aspens. There was no moon. The forest was just shapes and shadows, and occasionally, I thought I saw movement, something pale, something that might have been human-shaped drifting between the trees. I must have dozed off at the table because I woke up to the sound of the door opening, the RV door, the one I'd locked. I jerked awake and saw a figure standing in the doorway. The outside lights were off, so it was backlit by starlight, just a silhouette. But the proportions were wrong. Too tall, limbs too long. "Maya?" I said, though I knew it wasn't. The figure stepped inside. Not walked. Stepped, like it was learning how. Its head tilted at an angle that necks don't bend to, and I heard a sound like joints cracking. I tried to move and couldn't. My body, Maya's body, was frozen. I wanted to scream, but my throat had closed. The figure moved closer. I could see it better now. It was wearing clothes, jeans, and a jacket, things that looked familiar. As it passed through a shaft of light from the bedroom, I saw its face. It was my face. Not Maya wearing my body. Something else. The features were right, but assembled wrong, like a copy made by someone who'd never seen a human up close. The eyes were too wide, the mouth too thin, and it was smiling. "Daniel," it said in my voice. "You're still up." I couldn't answer. The fear was total, primal. Every instinct screamed that this thing was wrong, was predatory, was something I needed to run from immediately. It reached out a hand, my hand, and touched my shoulder. The fingers were cold through Maya's shirt. "Go to sleep," it said. And I did. I woke up in the bed, morning light coming through the window. Maya, the real Maya I hoped, was beside me, sleeping peacefully. For a moment I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I looked at my hands and saw hers again. I got up carefully, not wanting to wake her. In the bathroom I studied Maya's face in the mirror. Her features, her eyes, her expressions. But something felt different, like I was settling into it, the wrongness becoming familiar. When Maya woke up, she seemed more energized. "I slept great," she said, stretching my body in ways that made my joints pop. "I think I'm getting used to this." "You're getting used to it?" "Well, not used to it, but it's not as awful as yesterday. The panic has worn off a bit." "I saw something last night," I said. "After you went to bed, something that looked like you, like me, came into the RV." She frowned. "What do you mean, something that looked like you?" "It came through the door. It was wearing my face, but it was wrong. The proportions, the way it moved." "You were dreaming." "I wasn't dreaming." "Daniel, we're under a lot of stress. Our brains are in someone else's body, for Christ's sake. You had a nightmare, that's all." But she looked uncomfortable when she said it, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. The day passed slowly. We didn't leave the RV. Maya suggested several times that we should pack up and drive back to Salt Lake, find help. But every time we got close to actually doing it, something stopped us. The keys would be in the wrong place. We'd realize we were low on gas. Maya would remember we'd planned to stay 5 days and we'd only been there 2. It was like the decision to leave was right there, obvious and necessary, but we couldn't quite grasp it. By the 3rd night, I was starting to lose track of who was who. When I looked at Maya, I saw my body, and my brain would insist that's where I belonged. When I looked in the mirror, I saw her face, but it was starting to feel like my face. The wrongness was fading into a new kind of normal. We talked less. Maya spent time outside, walking around the campsite, always staying close, but never quite close enough for a real conversation. I stayed in the RV, moving between the bed and the dinette, watching the forest through the windows. I started seeing things in the trees. Not the figure from the first night, something else. Faces maybe, or the suggestions of faces. Shapes that might have been human once. They never got closer, just watched from the tree line, patient and still. On the fourth morning, I woke up and Maya was gone. Her body, my body, wasn't in the bed. I checked the bathroom, the kitchen outside. The RV was empty. I tried not to panic. She'd probably just gone for a walk, I told myself. She'd be back. But something felt wrong. More wrong than usual. The air inside the RV was thick, stagnant. The light coming through the windows had a quality to it that made everything look slightly unreal, like a photograph left too long in the sun. I waited an hour, then 2. Maya didn't come back. Eventually, I made myself leave the RV. The forest felt different in daylight. Not safer exactly, but more honest about its hostility. The aspens rustled, though there was no wind. The clearing seemed smaller than I remembered. "Maya!" I called out, hearing her voice echo back. "Where are you?" No answer. I walked the perimeter of the campsite looking for footprints, signs of which direction she'd gone. The ground was soft from recent rain I didn't remember, and there were tracks everywhere. Too many tracks, human-shaped. But the spacing was wrong, the stride too long. I followed the clearest set into the trees. They led toward the trail we'd taken that first day, the one with the numbered markers. As I walked, I realized the forest was silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just my footsteps, her footsteps, crunching on dead leaves. The markers were back, but the numbers had changed. 1, 1, 1. Every tree I passed had the same number carved into it, over and over. 1, 1, 1. I wanted to turn back, but I couldn't. My body, Maya's body, kept walking, pulled by something I couldn't name. The trees pressed closer. The path narrowed to barely a trail. Then I saw her, my body, standing in a small clearing ahead. Back to me, perfectly still. "Maya?" I said. She didn't turn around, didn't move at all. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run the other direction. When I got close enough to touch her, I reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. She turned around. The face was mine, but the expression was nothing I'd ever worn. Empty, hollow. The eyes looked at me but didn't see me. The mouth hung slightly open. "Maya, what's wrong?" She blinked, once, twice. Then she smiled, and it was the wrong smile. Too wide, too many teeth. "Nothing's wrong," she said in my voice. "Everything is exactly right." She reached out and touched my face, her face, with my hand. The fingers were ice cold. "You're adapting," she said. "It's beautiful, you're becoming real." "What are you talking about? We're all becoming real, all of us. The forest helps, the numbers help. You just have to let go." I jerked away from her. "You're not Maya." "I'm exactly Maya. I have her thoughts, her memories, her love for you." The smile widened. "I just understand things better now." I ran. I don't know if I found my way back to the RV or if the forest let me go again. But suddenly I was there, stumbling into the clearing, gasping for breath. The RV door was open. I'd left it locked, and inside I could hear someone moving around. I stopped at the threshold. Through the window I could see a figure in the bedroom. My body, Maya's body, moving normally, doing normal things, making the bed. I didn't go in. Instead, I sat down at the picnic table and tried to think, tried to separate what was real from what couldn't be real. But the categories were breaking down. When you wake up in someone else's skin, the definition of possible loses its meaning. The sun was setting again. I'd lost hours somehow, though it felt like I'd only been walking for minutes. The figure inside the RV, whichever one it was, turned on lights and moved to the kitchen. I could smell cooking, hear music playing, everything normal, everything wrong. I need to stop writing for a moment. My hand hurts, except it's not my hand. I keep forgetting that. It's been 3 weeks since I left Fish Lake National Forest. I'm writing this from a motel outside of Provo. I drove here in the RV, abandoned the campsite in the middle of the night and just started driving. I didn't stop until I hit civilization, lights, other people. Maya came with me. At least, the thing wearing my body came with me. She seems normal now. Talks like Maya. Laughs like Maya. Remembers things only Maya would know. She's been patient with me, understanding about my confusion, my paranoia. She says I need time to adjust, that the experience was traumatic, that we should see a therapist together. But sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking, I catch her studying me with an expression that isn't quite human. And sometimes late at night I hear her moving around the RV in ways that don't sound right. Joints bending incorrectly, footsteps with too many syllables. I'm still in Maya's body. I've gotten used to it now. When I look in the mirror, I barely remember what I used to look like. The face staring back is becoming mine. The thoughts in my head are becoming mine. Soon, I think, I won't remember there was ever a difference. And the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night, is that I saw it. In that clearing before I ran, I saw what Maya was looking at, what she was smiling at. There were others in the trees. Dozens of them. All standing perfectly still, all wearing faces that were almost right, but not quite. And they were all looking at me with the same expression Maya had. The same empty recognition, like they were waiting, like I was next, like I was already one of them, and just hadn't realized it yet. Tomorrow Maya wants to go back. She says we left things unfinished at the campsite. She says the forest is calling to us. She says it'll make sense once we're there. And the terrifying thing is that part of me agrees with her. Part of me wants to go back to Fish Lake, wants to walk that trail again, wants to see those faces in the trees and understand what they understood. Part of me that's growing bigger every day. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I'm Daniel King writing this or Maya wearing his memories or something else entirely that's learned to pretend. All I know is that when I close my eyes, I see the clearing. I see the figures. I see myself standing among them, wearing Maya's face with that same empty smile. And I see her, my body, my old life, welcoming me home. The forest is patient. The numbers keep counting. And sooner or later, everyone becomes real. I'm writing this down so someone will know what happened if we don't come back. But I'm also writing it down because part of me hopes someone will find it and understand. Part of me hopes that someone will read this and know that it's not too late, that I haven't fully changed yet, that I can still be saved. But every time I read it back, I see mistakes. Places where Maya's handwriting bleeds through. Phrases she would use instead of ones I would. The words themselves are changing, becoming something neither of us wrote. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the forest doesn't just take you. Maybe it teaches you that you were never really there to begin with. That the person you thought you were was just a story you told yourself, and stories can be rewritten. Maya is calling me now. She says it's time to go. She's smiling that smile that's mine but isn't. And there's something in her eyes that might be love or might be hunger or might be the forest itself looking out at me. I'm going to close this notebook now. I'm going to get in the RV. I'm going to drive back to Fish Lake National Forest with the woman who is and isn't my girlfriend, in the body that is and isn't mine. And when I get there, I think I'm going to understand. I think I'm going to see myself as I really am. I think I'm going to walk into those trees and find the clearing and stand with all the others who learned what it means to be real. And maybe, just maybe, I'll finally feel like I'm in the right skin. Even if it's not my own. Even if it never was. My name is Daniel King, at least I think it is. At least that's what the person wearing this face keeps telling herself. The forest is waiting. The numbers are counting down, and I'm almost home.